Paul Braddock to tell some of his experiences before we get into some things this afternoon. The idea is not to sell you on the program, but the idea is for you to write up amusing things that happen to you and send them in so that we can put them in a booklet.
Thank you, Dr. Reams. It's a pleasure to even stand beside this man.
He told us one yesterday afternoon about the worms, and he had some others that he volunteered to tell. I thought you'd like to hear about them.
I thought you might be interested in some of the most unusual readings that Dr. Reams gave me when I first started studying with him. And I have about 10 of them outlined. Once I called Doc from my office and gave him the numbers only, no eye numbers, no case history, nothing. And he said, this woman has age, height, weight, and the numbers, of course. He said this lady would have a black spot in front of her left eye when she looks straight ahead. There's a fray on the optic nerve. After he had concluded the rest of her body, I walked into her and I said, do you have a black spot in front of your left eye when you look straight ahead? And she says, how in the world did you know? I said, I didn't. Dr. Reams sure did. And not only that, he gave the time it would take to heal it, and it did. The black spot left in 3.5 months, just like he said. I want to remind you, that's over the phone. The reason I'm telling you some of this is I believe that a lot of you don't realize the depth that Dr. Reams can go into these numbers and the fantastic knowledge he does have. And it's just an honor, a real honor to be studying under a man like this to me. I want to tell you the first case I ever called into him was a family. I was on my way back from the retreat after I'd taken the first course, and I stopped at a family in Charleston, West Virginia. And they had 3 extensions in the house, and the mother and the father got on one extension, or on those 2 extensions. And while I was dialing Dr. Reams, the father said, I hope this man can tell me why my chest hurts all the time. And the first words out of Dr. Reams' mouth was, this man would have a lot of pain in his upper chest. And you should have seen this guy's mouth drop. And then when he got to the daughter, Dr. Reams told the mother, are you aware that your daughter started her period today? And she dropped the phone. Now I'll tell you, I had a woman in the office once that was sitting there with her hand on her temple, like this. This was another case of age, height, weight, and just the numbers. Dr. Reams said, Paul, you probably noticed this woman putting her right hand up to her temple. There is carcinoma between the cambium layer and the brain. It's not yet touching the brain, but it is touching the back of the right eye. And if you examine that eye, you'll notice it's pooling. And it was. And when I sat there and looked in the other room, here she was sitting there with her hand on that temple. And I'm telling you these things because I want some of you to realize the depth that this man goes in when he can just sit down and look at some numbers and he's not rushed to death. There was a case of a woman who came in and she had a ugly-looking tumor on the left side of her neck here, protruding. Here again, no case history, no eye numbers, just age, height, weight, the numbers. And Doc started at her feet and was coming up to her leg, and when he got up around the neck area, he said, Paul, what you're looking at is not her problem. And I hadn't even told him I was looking at anything. He said, have you noticed her tilting her head to the left? And she was sitting there like that. I thought she was trying to hide the tumor. He said, there's a malignant tumor on the right side of the neck pushing up against the skull, and it's causing her head to tilt to the left. He said, what you're looking at on her neck is one of the fingers running off the malignancy, protruding out the side of the neck, and there's also 2 going down and 2 going up. You better get her in here right away. There was another case that Hans Moore and I was on. This girl was in a wheelchair. They had treated her as a schizophrenic for the first year, muscular dystrophy the second year, wasn't it, Hans? And again we called in, the father got on the phone, and Dr. Reams, still no case history, nothing. This time we did have the eye numbers, but Dr. Reams said, this woman would have a lot of trouble walking. She would need help. There's a brain tumor the size of about flat as a feather, about 3 inches long, and it's touching the base of the pons. These people had spent an unbelievable amount of money trying to find the problem on their child. An unbelievable amount. Not only did he not know the case history, but he gave all the symptoms at the same time that he read that on the phone for us. I just want to share some of those things with you because I want you to realize that the real depth that's involved here. There was another man I had that Dr. Reams called 12 tumors on his body. The exact location, and you could feel every single one of them. 12. There was another tumor case in the uterus area. One gentleman asked me after class the other day, well, has any of those ever been verified? Here's one it was. This woman went to the clinic at Hershey and had this one checked out. He gave the exact size of the tumor in the uterus area, again over the phone, exact size, and she verified it the next day. There was another unusual tumor case was when Dr. Reams caught a tumor inside the spine on the fourth dorsal. When I went to that individual, I asked him, I came down his spine, and I said, has your back been hurting? And he said, yes, right in the middle. And I put my hand on the fourth dorsal, and I said, here? And he said, yes, right there. Tumor inside the spine. There was another case that they carried this little boy up into my office. He was a 11-year-old bad leukemia case. Here again, no case history, age, height, weight, numbers. I no sooner got the numbers out, doctor, send him on down here, Paul, you got a leukemia case on your hands. I mean, he just never misses. I've never seen this man wrong. And incidentally, I've never brought a subject up to him and he didn't give me a lecture on. We've been in the mining business for a while now, and he told me more about my mining business than I knew existed. There's a case of a brain tumor, an 11-year-old girl. They spent $10,000 to Morgantown University trying to locate this. Dr. Reams found it immediately. Here again, over the phone. The tumor was gone in 4 months. They had spent $10,000. He's still paying the bill, where they were trying to find out what was wrong with their daughter. She had missed 2 years of school. Her eyes were bulging out of her head. Bad case. Convulsions, everything else. Here again, I still gave no cases, never asked for any. He just gave him the numbers, bam. He had the result. There was, I've got a lot more I could tell you, but I think I've taken enough of the time. What I wanted to stress to you was, like I said, he doesn't have to sell you anything, but I want you to know that the numbers are much, much more detailed than we can even believe. I've seen him call a fungus on a toe over the phone, and things of that nature. And let's face it, there's a lot of depth here we're not into yet. And I can see why he's teaching us what we think is slow, and how much has to be comprehended before this thing ever comes out to us. Again, I just tell you, it's just a pure honor to even get to study under the man.
Thank you, Paul.